Yes, you can. All right, so take the pass. Yeah. In the first 5 lines, can someone just summarize what's going on? Where are we? What's happening? Jalissa, what's up? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it's the day of the dinner. This passage, the first 5 lines at least, are just telling you kind of the things that have been done already to set up for this dinner party. Who is going to be there? Who is going to? Okay, so we got Gaius Cornelius and, well, Aurelia, I guess, will be there. Pseudolus is a slave. He just happens to be mentioned because he was. Yeah, Titus will make an appearance, and it'll be funny. But who else? Roman senators, yeah. Praeclari Romans. Okay, distinguished Roman senators. Okay, so that's where we are. All right, they bought some bread, vegetables, chickens, eggs, apples, food. Okay, is the best dinner going to be prepared? Yes, indeed. Okay, so let's pick it up at line 6. All right, here's the deal. We're going to translate. If you are not sure what something is or how it is functioning in the sentence, I ask you, please ask. Ask about it if you're not sure. Okay, identifying parts of the sentence is part of this battle that we're fighting in the Latin classroom. Okay, so I need you guys to know what things are. I need you to know how they're functioning. And I need you to understand how that plays into translation. Okay? So let's take this first sentence. Yam hora kenai apropin quabat. All right, and it's okay if you read from your translations right now. Just know that we're going to be kind of working through both, like your translation and the Latin text. Yeah, so can you, Oma, how'd you translate that? Yes, okay, now I'm going to highlight, I guess, as we go. Now the hour of dinner was approaching. Okay, apropin quabat, active or passive? Active, good. All right, can someone give me the tense? Imperfect. What kind of sheep go ba? Imperfect sheep. Okay, good. All right, next sentence. Dum inquilina quibus quoque bator, ancilai triclinium parabant. I'll take a volunteer. All right, Nate, what you got for me? Good, exactly right. Okay, so while the food was being cooked in the kitchen, the slave girls were preparing the dining room. And you got it right. You got the tenses right. So well done. Let's take a look. What is the difference between the two verbs, koquebator? Sorry, I should circle it so you can still see the word. Koquebator and parabant. What's the difference between them? They're the same tense, correct? Because they've got a BA in it. What's the difference?
Just like two turns or something like that.
Wait,
like the ending thing, like the turtle thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the ending is different, right? So koquebator is passive, parabant is active. Okay, now if it's passive and it's in the present verb system, right, is it just a matter of an ending to be added?
Can you ask that again?
If so, like we have the two verb systems, right? We've got the present verb system and the perfect verb system. Okay, in the present verb system, how do you make a verb passive? Is it an ending or do you separate it into two words? It's an ending, right? So in the perfect system then, yeah, okay, fourth principal part plus a form of the verb to be. Okay, good, so far so good. Next, mensa a servis in medium triclinium jam alata erat. Let's just take that chunk and then we'll do the second chunk after that. Who would like to put forth something? Show me what you know. Show me what you know. Okay, Salome.
you say can?
The table had, did you say now? Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so yes, the table had been brought already or now uh, by the slaves into the middle of the dining room. Okay. How many prepositional phrases do we have in this chunk? 2. Okay. Roy, can you identify one prepositional phrase for me? Good. In medium, whoops, that's an eraser. In medium triclinium. And what's the other prepositional phrase? Ivy. Thomas, you want to help her out? Yeah, exactly right. It's a servis. Okay. Now, another grammatical point. Just a question here. Alata erat. Everybody, active or passive? Passive, right? Because we see a verb, a form of the verb to be, and that could be a linking verb, but the presence of alata here, it looks like a fourth principal part of a verb, so therefore this is a passive verb. Now, when you have a passive verb and something that's being done by somebody, what kind of ablative is that? So it is a person. It's you're close. It starts with an A. Ablative of AG. Ablative of agent. Yep. Okay. If something was being done by a thing, though, what would it be? An ablative of means. Good. And with an ablative of means, do you need the preposition a or ab? No. But with an ablative of agent, you do. For whatever reason. I don't know why.
Imply though that you don't put a by in front of the means?
That's why it's tricky, because the word itself will be in the ablative case and you use buoff to figure out like how to translate that, so it's kind of already pre-programmed in. So I don't honestly know why they require a preposition for one and not the other. It's a weird exception. Latin's kind of like that. It's like, oh, we're just going to do these things. Okay, let's keep going. Tres lecti circum mensam positi erant. All right, who's got that translation? All right, so the table was carried, and okay, so you said three beds. How did you translate positi erant? Position, yeah, around the table. Okay. The only thing I'm going to pick about that, positi erant. All right, does anyone, it's a passive form. What tense? Yeah, it's pluperfect, so had been placed. Okay, and then circum mensam is just your prepositional phrase. Okay? So far, so good? Okay, something I'd like to point out too, what's super awesome about passive verbs is, at least in the perfect system, because you have, like, look at this word positi for a second, okay? That I is an adjective ending, okay? And the subject of this chunk is lecti. So check it out. We've got lecti, which ends in an I, and positi, which also ends in an I. Okay, so that, yeah, like when you see the verb like that, it further justifies kind of what the subject is. It'll kind of help you identify a little bit quicker than like a normal, any other verb with just an ending. See how that kind of works a little bit? All right, we'll see more examples of that in a bit. Okay, let's keep going. Triclinium Cornelii erat pulcherrimum atque ornatissimum. All right, Josh. Yeah, you're good. Good. Okay. Now this they threw in there to mess with you a little bit. Okay, so erat. Is it part of a passive verb or is it just a simple linking verb right now? It's just a simple linking verb. Good. Okay, but that's one thing I want you guys to kind of think. When you see a verb to be, is there a fourth principal part lingering around somewhere? Okay, if not, simple linking verb. Okay. So you said the dining room of Cornelius. All right, what case is Cornelii and why? What case is Cornelii and why? Jalissa? Think of how we translated it. The dining room of Cornelius. So what case is of? The genitive, right? For what's the purpose of the genitive case? Possession. Good. Okay. One more grammatical point that I kind of want to point out. We've got these two words here, and Josh correctly translated them as very beautiful and very decorated. Okay. Those are adjectives. Have we talked about adjectival degrees before? Okay, like good, better, best, or like silly, more silly, and very silly. Okay, those are adjectival degrees. All right, those degrees are positive, which is like the normal degree, comparative, which is like more something, and then there's the superlative degree, okay, meaning the most something. Okay, so which degree are these two words here? They're most, so they're the superlative degree. Okay, just wanted to point that out. Okay, I won't test you on that, but all right, next. In parietibus erant picturae pulcherrimae. All right, who would like to put forth? Okay, Daniel, sure. Oh, wait, before that. This one right here. Yeah, right before. Yeah, good. On the walls were beautiful pictures. What kind of pictures? Beautiful or very beautiful? Or very or the most, right? Because pulcherrimai here is also a superlative. All right. Now they might be different cases, but take a look at these words. Pulcherrimum and pulcherrimai. What do they have in common? Like pulcher is the stem of it, and the ending is just the ending. What's in the middle? Yeah, that like erim, that like double R sound. So that's how you can recognize a superlative, is if you see like an erimus or something like that in the middle of the word. Okay, just as a quick fix. Identify the superlative degree. Yeah, and we'll talk about that for sure, a little more specifically. Okay, next. It's going to tell us what's in these paintings. So someone take... What's up? Yeah, it's the ERRI that's in it that'll make it look like that. Like, oh wow, I just totally forgot. Never mind. Yeah, I was going to give you an example, but I can't remember. Okay, so someone take this chunk here from in alia pictura canis Cerberus e regno Plutonis extra hebator. Okay, Roy, go ahead. Yeah, so the dog Cerberus, go to the verb now, extra hebator. So traho, trahere is to drag, and ex traho is to drag where? Being dragged where? X, A or X. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in another painting, the dog Cerberus was being dragged, and it's going to tell us who. Or sorry, where from? Out of where? The kingdom of whom? Yeah,
Wait,
good.
did you say in another? Because I said in one and then the other in another.
Did I say another?
I think so, but you do like one and then another.
Yes. Yeah, good point. Okay, so because we've got alia, and then we've got alia, and then we've got alia, it's like in one, in another, in another. Those are just correlatives, meaning they're like co-relating the different clauses. Yes. Well, you tell me. What tense is extrahe ba tour? Yep, so I would say was being dragged, right? Because the imperfect is the wasing. Good question. Okay, so that's in one picture. And in another, who'd like to tell me what the other painting has? Uma, sure. Good. Okay, so Mercury was leading the dead to Charon. Okay. Um, Now, just as a quick side note, mortuos. Mortuos. Okay. Technically, that's coming from an adjective, mortuus aum, meaning dead, right? There, I couldn't find a word. I even looked in like the big dictionary. I couldn't find a word for like dead people. So what they do sometimes is they use an adjective in the place of a noun. Do we remember what those are called when you use an adjective? So close. Substantive, yes. So mortuus here is a substantive adjective. Okay, and because mortuos, that's a masculine ending, you understand that it's like dead people. Okay. All right, and the final painting, what does it have in it? Who'd like to translate that chunk? Erin, okay. Good. In another, Orpheus was descending into or to the underworld. Good. All right.
These like paintings, because I was reading some. Yeah, I was confused. I thought I translated it wrong.
No, you're fine. And I want to bring in some stuff. I do want to talk about Roman art, specifically wall paintings. And I think I'm going to bring that in on Monday and we'll talk about it. But this is kind of just like I'll explain more then.
But is this like
Like for dinner parties, they would just.
Well, so just kind of the basic answer. Roman wall painting has different phases, and in some phases of the wall, like there are different styles. Technically there's four, so there's first, second, third, and fourth style. In one of the styles, they like to paint or depict myths, common things that people would know about, and that is indicated here.
like dead people?
Well, I mean, it's not, so maybe it's not, because it doesn't sound, the first one is definitely a myth. The second one is kind of like a well-known job that people don't really, well, we don't talk about it today, but Mercury, or Hermes in the Greek, one of his jobs in the Greek, sorry, that's supposed to be one word, but I'm splitting it up because I ran out of room. Okay, psyche pompos. Psyche pompos. All right. What is the psyche? It's the mind, but it can also mean the soul. Okay. And then pompos is similar to it's the word for procession or leading. So one of Mercury's attributes, not only is he just the messenger god, but he's also tasked with leading the souls of the dead, like a leader of souls. And he gives them to Charon, who then ferries them across and takes them onward to judgment and all that fun stuff. Yes. Yeah, and what's super cool is that so when with those of you that do go on to AP Latin, we're going to read this section like for real, for real. But Caesar writes about the Gauls, and he does go into like a little side note about the culture of them. And he talks about the gods in their pantheon, but he refers to them with Roman names so that the people back home reading it can understand like what these gods kind of do. And they're big, like, so for the Romans, Jupiter is like the ultimate dude, right? Like those of you who've read the Aeneid and those of you who have even read the Iliad and the Odyssey, Zeus is like the top dog. But for the Gauls, It's Mercury, which is weird. Super weird. Because he's the god of like traveling, trade, thieves. Yeah, no one, like he's kind of just like an afterthought in the Greek and Roman pantheon. But for the Gauls, he's the top dog. So it's interesting just to see like the different cultures and how they kind of view these like tricksters or these gods of travel and trade and all of these things. Like it does say something about the society for sure, right? So that's just a quick side note. And Orpheus going into the underworld, that is a myth. So it's often these things are depicted and you use iconography to kind of identify who's what. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, but wall painting is kind of interesting, especially Pompeian wall painting. Yes?
Did they use like this to teach lessons of like such as this one would there be any lesson just going to the underworld?
So I mean, if you think about art in general, like the purpose. So back then, the literary rates were not always so high. So how do you tell stories? You either tell it verbally, or you depict it visually, and that's why art is so incredibly important, especially with like church depictions too. Because back in the day, people couldn't read the Bible, so how did we know the stories? They'd put them on the stained glass windows. They'd paint them. They'd sculpt them. Okay, and that's how you portray what's going on, and that's how people can get the meaning from it, right? There's always interpretation with art, and you can kind of glean the lessons from it. But yeah, so these could be lessons. I think they just dropped them in there so that we can talk about art, which I'm not mad about. So, but we'll talk about that on Monday a little more specifically, and I'll have you guys look at some examples of wall painting. Some of it's absolutely stunning, and I'll tell you a story about a dog, which is cool. No, it's a weird story. It was like probably one of the most magical things that's happened to me in a while. Yeah, it was a magical thing. Okay. Next. So we'll get, those are the wall paintings. From Cornelius to Nona Hora. All right, this was the Naruto? What? What did you say? Okay, so it was the 9th hour, so that's that chunk. What was Cornelius doing? Nate. Ordering the slaves to hurry. Very good. Okay, so festinare is an infinitive, and you translated that correctly. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Okay. Aurelia, semper solicita, because she's a Karen, was incitabating the anquilas vehementer. All right, who'd like to take that chunk? Ivy, how about you? I haven't heard from you today. Good. Okay, Aurelia, always worried, was urging violently the slave women. Okay. Subito, suddenly. Anquila quaidam. A certain slave woman. Eh? What? Oh, okay. A certain slave woman. Let's ignore this for just a second. Let's take this here. A certain slave woman was doing what? Ewertiting something. What happened? Okay, yes. All right, so let's mark that up. Okay, so Anquila Quaidam, a certain slave woman hurrying here and there, overturned by chance one, and you could say one candle, understood, but if you're going to do that, bracket it off so that like the AP readers know, and I know that you know that word's not in there, but you need to supply it. So one out of the candelabra. Okay. Now, translation for this chunk here. A certain slave woman, if you're an owl, what do you say? Who? Okay, so a certain slave woman who was timebating Aureliam magnopere. Yeah, so a certain slave woman who was fearing Aurelia greatly, rather. Okay, she did this. Okay, this is going to cause a problem. So candelabrum, yeah, let's take that chunk here. Who'd like to translate that? The candelabrum in lectum deiectum est. Yeah, okay, the lampstand or the candelabra fell onto the couch. Okay, now remember when I said those endings match up, right? The subject of the sentence is candelabrum, and our verb is deiectum. You see how those match up, and that further confirms that those have a relationship? Okay, and immediately, what happened? Immediately, what happened, Josh? Wait, oh, you go back a little bit. Statim effusum est oleum in strata. And then after that, immediately what happened? Before that. Sorry. Okay, so let's work through it. Oleum is my subject, and my verb is effusum est. Statum is just an adverb, and in strata is a preposition. So immediately, what does oleum look like? And how do you... How can I... oleum. Yeah, like think about how did they light candles? Like sometimes they were wax, but usually they were like oil candles. So, Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So immediately the oil fell or was poured out onto the sheets. Okay. And therefore, as Josh said, all right, this caught fire rather quickly. Celeriter, which is an adverb. Okay. All right. Is Aurelia happy about this? No. How do I know? What word tells us that? Eurata. Okay. So Aurelia, angry, was reprehending who? The negligentem, the careless slave woman. But Cornelius, what did he do? What a hero. Ooh. Okay, so Cornelius put out the fire, again, quickly, palio, by means of a what? A cloak. Good, so he smothered it. Those of you in my cooking class, Salome, is that the right thing to do? Because it's a grease fire? No water, that's right. I know. Okay. All right, so guys, for homework over the weekend, audite statim, please. All right. I'd like you to go through the rest of these lines a little more carefully and look for, let's pretend that you're me. Pretend you're me writing a quiz about these lines. Okay? So go through these and write grammar questions for certain things in each sentence. Yep. Okay. All right, good work.